So with the release of Hitman 3 last week, it was the perfect time to go back and overlook the entire Hitman franchise. This has always been one of my favorite gaming franchises. I'm a huge stealth action fan, and Hitman is one of the best. So this is going to be a ranking of all of the mainline games, as well as the 2 mobile games. So 10 games in all. Every Hitman game that has ever been released, ranked worst to best. And if you guys want more in-depth details or more in-depth thoughts on the new release Hitman 3, I have a full review that is on this channel. I'll put a card up here right now if you want to check that one out and then come back to this ranking. While never really seeming to have the prestige or the cloud of franchises like Metal Gear Solid or even like Splinter Cell, which we're overdue for one of those too, Hitman's always kind of floated under the radar from what I can tell. It's always had its fans, it's always had a little bit of a cult following to it, but it never really felt like this AAA franchise, never really felt like this huge name. I was always excited, but it never really felt like the gaming community was excited when a new Hitman came out. But despite that, it's kept kicking, it has kept bringing out sequels, it's evolved a couple of times, it has pretty much steadily improved almost all the way throughout its entire franchise. And now with this most recent World of Assassination trilogy, I feel like it's finally starting to get the respect and the fan base that it actually deserves, and it looks like it's full steam ahead for the Hitman franchise from now going forward. But as far as this ranking, we'll go ahead and start it off at the bottom with number 10. And number 10 is going to be Hitman Sniper. Now, to be fair, this game really is kind of like bringing a toothpick to a gunfight. This is a mobile game that is just a sniping simulator where you're just looking through the scope and you tap the phone to take out some targets. It's just a simple little simulator that's on your mobile device. It's not really trying to be a Hitman game other than just using the name, using the graphics, maybe some sounds and some voice recognition from it. As a sniping simulator, it's decent enough. You can kill a couple of minutes here and there. It is a mobile game. It does what mobile games do. But compared to all the other great games in this franchise, it's not coming anywhere close to even number 9. And speaking of number 9, we're going to go all the way back to the beginning at Hitman Codename 47. Now, while this might be controversial for longtime Hitman fans, hear me out. I did not actually get to play this game whenever it was new, whenever it was fresh on the scene, whenever it was the start of this franchise. This debuted as a PC exclusive game. It did not come to consoles, the franchise, until the second game, so this was not even really a game that I was able to play. I always had the shittiest PCs growing up that could not handle any games. Even games like The Sims would crash my computer, so Hitman was just not in the cards for me. And it wasn't until later on that I decided to retroactively go back and just check out this game out of curiosity, as well as experiencing some of the levels in a game that we're going to be talking about a little bit later on this list, to where it might not be fair because I didn't actually experience it in its heyday to where I could appreciate a lot of what this game did. It just really felt dated and kind of underdeveloped to me because I had played all the much better sequels, but it's my honest ranking. Number 9 for me, from my experience, is the first game, Hitman Codename 47. Number 8 is Hitman Go. Now, from here on out, these are all games that I would give a huge recommendation to. Even Hitman Go. On paper, this sounded like a terrible idea, like a Hitman board game mobile style thing that I had no idea what the hell they were doing. Just give me another Hitman game. What are you wasting your time on this for? And then it came to the PS4. It was very cheap. I bought it on there and gave it a shot, and this is actually a pretty damn little fun strategy game. Being the fact that it's on a board game and you're using these little, wax figures or little porcelain figures to move around, it seems like it would not have anything in common with the rest of the Hitman franchise, but it actually keeps the spirit of these games intact, to where you have to make these moves to stay in cover and you have to kind of watch all of your surroundings, and there's so much strategy to it. It's almost like solving puzzles all the way through, which I like puzzles. I like brain teasers. I like to be challenged with strategy and planning and execution, and Hitman Go is a fun game. If you can play it on your mobile device or if you have it on PS4 and you want to check it out, it's a pretty cheap game. I actually think it's pretty damn good. But I'll definitely play the other Hitman games before I'll play a strategy game, so number 8. Number 7, Hitman Absolution. Now, this is a game that came out, and I really enjoyed it when it came out. I can't really go back into my headspace. I don't know if I was just really craving a Hitman game, or if because of where the Splinter Cell franchise was at the time, this making the similar transition that some of the last 2 Splinter Cell games made kind of felt right to me and I was cool with it. This is much more of like an action game with much more of a narrative focus and big cinematic moments in here. It's not really so much of a Hitman game. But I will say, it is a damn fun game. If you can kind of remove yourself from what you expect a Hitman game to be and just play this for what it was intended to be, which is where the developers weren't really sure if gamers wanted to play classic Hitman anymore. They wanted to do something different, try something bold. Didn't really work. Most Hitman fans, I'd say the vast majority of them, did not like this game at all, and it is usually the black sheep, if not near the bottom of everybody's ranking. But for me, even though it is towards the bottom, I do think this game has more merit and it has more to give than is given credit for. It's not a Hitman game. It's not a very good Hitman game. But it is a fun action game. It does have some stealth and classic Hitman elements. It's just kind of structured differently. Instead of being these big open world sandboxes where you kind of can use whatever devices you want to get the job done, it's a little bit more linear, a little bit more structured into chapters and levels, which certainly is a bit anti-Hitman for most people to swallow. But I had fun with it. I liked the story. It was goofy, it was crazy, it was over the top, it was tongue-in-cheek, and there are some good moments throughout these levels that I feel like have more fun in them than people give it credit for. Number 6 is going to be Hitman Contracts. Now, this was a game that I was so excited for because I had just gotten introduced to the Hitman franchise finally with Silent Assassin. This came out, I believe, a year, maybe 2 years later, and I could not wait to play it because I just loved what Hitman II Silent Assassin gave. Really wanted some more Hitman, and this game does this thing where it gives you some new levels, but half of the game is actually remastered and kind of retooled levels from Hitman Codename 47. And I actually played these levels before I played the original Hitman Codename 47, so they were basically all new to me. Where this game succeeds is that it has some of the darkest and grittiest tone of the entire franchise, and I really liked that approach. I kind of want the next game to have a little bit more of that because I do like the tongue-in-cheek, I do like the lighthearted feel to a lot of the Hitman franchise, but the darkness of this one actually felt right to me, and I want to see another dark chapter like that. Like this whole Meat King, the meat packing plant king, or I think it was the first mission after the prologue. That was one of my favorite Hitman missions ever. I just played that one on constant loop. Where the game falters a bit to me is that it really doesn't feel like it adds anything as far as features from Hitman 2. I believe really the only thing that changed is you got rid of like chloroform, and then you got the syringe that is still in the game to this day, which I believe was a big change back then because it was like, oh, that chloroform shit sucks. This actually works, but it wasn't really a gigantic feel. It did feel like Hitman 2.5 in a lot of ways. And if I'm being honest, though this is me thinking way back, I have not played this game in years, I remember a lot of the remastered, remade levels from Codename 47 being amongst my least favorite levels in this one. It seemed like all the new stuff had a lot more oomph to it, a lot more creativity. So there was a bit of a mixed bag going through these missions to where there was a cool new mission and then a bit of a throwback mission that felt a little too throwback to me. But this was still a fun game, and it definitely satisfied me at the time while I waited for the true follow-up to Hitman 2 Silent Assassin. Speaking of, number 5, Hitman 2 Silent Assassin. This was my first Hitman game. I remember walking into either Kmart or Walmart or something and seeing this in the racks in the PS2, I believe, aisle. And luckily my grandma was with me, who absolutely loved me, and I was a spoiled little shit because I remember seeing it and I was like, oh my god, that's that game that I've been wanting to play forever. There's another one and it's actually on consoles. Please, can I have it? She bought it for me. I went home that night and I was an absolute Hitman addict for the rest of the weekend. I was locked in my room like a little vampire, just playing these missions over and over again. And I was hooked. I loved this new style of gameplay. I loved all the creativity with using the different disguises and how you take out your targets and having to use strategy. And it was just so much fun. It was a different take on the stealth action genre. Why it's not much higher on this list is that it doesn't really age very well. It's not a game that I think I could ever go back to and play. I feel like I would have just an extremely frustrating experience trying to go back to that. Give it credit for what it's done. It made me a Hitman fan. It was a great sequel. It brought it to the consoles. It added a lot of good features. It definitely improved on basically everything from Hitman Codename 47. Still had a lot of issues, especially with the suspicion meter. Every single person that has ever played Hitman 2 Silent Assassin, and even maybe Contracts to a degree as well, has had a numerous amount of times where you have the perfect disguise. You're walking normal, you're not bugging anybody, you got no weapons out, you're acting like a natural human being, and then that fucking suspicion meter starts going bananas and everybody starts shooting you and you're like, what the fuck? What did I do? And being that I was still pretty young at the time, I wasn't as good at games, as strategic, as smart as I am as an adult. There was a lot of levels in this game that I pretty much just gave up and just fired my way through. I just went through guns blazing just to get to the next level, because no matter how many times I tried to be strategic and try to plan things out, that fucking suspicion thing would always screw me up. So there's classic memories that I have with certain levels, especially some of the earlier ones, in the final level in the church when you just get to go guns blazing, that I loved. But it was a bit over my my difficulty learning curve at the time. So even back then, I had some frustrations with the game, but it did bring me this franchise. So I love you, Hitman 2. Now we are at the cream of the crop. All 4 of these games in the top 4 are best of the best Hitman games. If you want a Hitman experience, these were the ones that did it damn near perfectly. And number 4 for me is going to be Hitman Blood Money. This was a game that I had been waiting for a long time. I remember it just felt like forever, even though it wasn't. It felt like forever before Contracts came out, and then this one finally hit the shelves. And I remember playing this one, and everything just felt so much more streamlined. It felt like it was a lot more accessible. It felt like there was a lot more tongue-in-cheek, a lot more fun to be had versus just a lot of frustration with some of the planning and some of the execution and a lot of the strategy that it takes. You still need those, but it just had a little bit more of an arcade feel to it, where anybody could jump in, get the gist of what's going on, and do pretty well in these levels, and not just get their ass kicked every 5 seconds because, you know, they were walking a little bit too suspiciously. Hitman Blood Money basically perfected the Hitman formula. This was the one where everything was firing on all cylinders. The graphics were great at the time, the controls were so much better, the way that they had them all retooled, and it has some of the most celebrated, some of the most classic Hitman missions in it, from the clown at the birthday party, whatever the hell mission that was, somebody's gonna know down in the comments. You got the one where you have to walk through Mardi Gras and you get the little bird suits that I always remembered. Even like the opening mission, where I always remember the prologue to this one, and that abandoned little circus or that abandoned fair, whatever the hell it was. There were so many classic maps in this that were just awesome. They were so creative. And even the theater one was one of the best ones, where one of your targets is up on stage and you can like swap his prop gun for a real gun and have him taken out the Crow style, or you can have like this falling chandelier, or you can even hide behind stage, and whenever the play is going on and the guy fires the fake gun, you can fire the real gun behind the stage and nobody will suspect you. This was just an awesome gaming experience. Reason why it's number 4, even though I'm saying these are all awesome, is because there's 3 games that did it better, that shocked me that they did it better. And I also played, right after I gave Hitman Absolution a second viewing a couple days ago, I played Hitman Blood Money, and just like every single time as a gamer you try to go back a console generation or 2, the controls just mess up your mind. Left is right and right is left, and you know, you're trying to throw something and you gotta click the button in the middle instead of L2, and it's just fucking you all up, and you're like, God, I love this game, why can't I just play it the way I used to? So just like the other games, maybe some age has been put on this game. It's not quite the streamlined experience that it was whenever it first hit the shelves, but I have so many awesome memories with Hitman Blood Money. Now, as far as these top 3, if I'm being honest, they might as well all get a 3-way tie, because just like what I said in my Hitman 3 review, all 3 of these games are basically the same game that has just been chopped up into 3 sections. You know, there are a couple of small little tweaks between them. Of course, you get the graphical upgrade between Hitman 2 and Hitman 3 because I played it on PS5, so you get the new generation. There is slight differences, but they all feel like the same game, so whatever, I have to rank them anyway. So number 3 for me, mostly just because it is the new kid on the block, is going to be Hitman 3. Now, getting the negatives out of the way first, aside from just not having as much experience and as much deep-seated love for the 2 above it, because I've only had it for a week, there were quite a few bugs that I've had in this game so far, to where, you know, the servers have been down a couple of times, not a big deal, we experienced that in the other 2 games, but I've had challenges that don't pop whenever I get to the mission. I have to go back and find them again, even though I definitely did them. I had this whole debacle where You're allowed to import your status and your challenges and all the missions from your save files from Hitman 1 and 2, and you only get one chance to do this. And I brought all my stuff over. I brought over all my trophies, brought over all my points, all my profiles, all the challenges. Didn't bring over the game data. So then I had to buy Hitman 1 and 2 again on the digital store in order to play them on Hitman 3 on the PS5. Luckily, they weren't as expensive as they were back in the day, or I would have said, hell no. So that was frustrating. There's a couple other small little things, but as far as the positives, it's all the same positives I'm going to tell you for the next 5 or 10 minutes talking about these 3 games. This is the Hitman experience at its best. Absolutely perfected. I cannot see them doing any better with the Hitman formula than they have done with this World of Assassination trilogy. Just the streamlined experience, taking a lot of inspiration from the things that they hammered out in Hitman Blood Money and just expanding it like crazy into these gigantic maps where you have 1,000 different ways to go about your mission, hundreds of different ways to go about killing all of your targets, whatever order you want, ways to escape the map, all these different challenges and different costumes and different interactions and secrets that you can find and shortcuts. It is an endlessly replayable game, and it has some of the best maps that I've seen in Hitman. There's one that everybody loves so far that takes a lot of inspiration from Knives Out. You're in this mansion and you get to kind of pose as a private investigator and solve a murder while trying to commit one of your own. There's also a really great kind of rave level where you have to do a very different style of Hitman play where you have to go through and actually find your targets first and then figure out how you're going to take them out. The final mission in this game, while not necessarily being as replayable as the rest of them because it's much more linear, it's totally badass. And just to get to the end of the game and be able to play that level where they encourage you to kill every single person on the map, that was a cool little breath of fresh air. So Hitman 3 so far, I've had an absolute blast with it. It might go up on this list very quickly, but as of right now, it's sitting at number 3. Number 2 for me is going to be Hitman 2016. Now, I was very excited when they announced this while being very confused because this was the one that they decided to do like an episodic release to where you can either buy the whole game or you can buy individual episodes. And I believe there was like a month or so between each one. So for like 6 months, they slowly released each new map of this game. And before playing it, I was like, why the hell would you do that? Why would you piece your game? This is stupid. This is going to be a horrible trend that I hope no other franchise does. And then you play it, you play the first mission that they give you, and you realize the experience that they have built into this new retooled Hitman, and it totally made sense because you have such a desire to explore every nook and cranny, every different type of assassination, every exit route of these maps that just having one at a time is almost like having a complete game at a time. You would sit there, you would go through it once, and then you would go through it about 50 more times trying to get all the different ways and figure out all the different methods of madness to getting your targets taken out. And then at the end of the month, you get a new map. So I just had an awesome experience with Hitman over that 5 or 6 month period where they were releasing these maps. They were all pretty damn good. They all had their own new fun little flavor to them. And like I already said with Hitman 3, this was the one that did it. This was the one that brought that new expanded, retooled, and perfected Hitman experience to the Hitman franchise and has basically set the standard for what they're going to hopefully continue to do for the rest of this franchise. I just don't see them perfecting it more than they already have. And then that leaves number 1, which for me is Hitman 2. Hitman 2 took everything that was great about Hitman and did it just a little bit better. Wasn't really a whole lot of added features to it. The same thing for Hitman 3. It was just small, subtle little differences that really didn't make a difference. But all of the maps in Hitman 2 are some of the greatest maps that you're going to see in the Hitman franchise. I dare you to look up rankings of like the best Hitman assassination missions, best Hitman maps. I bet there's at least half of them on that list from Hitman 2. One of my favorites is like, is it Sapienza? I don't. Somebody's gonna tell me in the comments. It's the one with the race car track where you're there and you can blow up the race car. You can be down in the pit and take off the tires and have him crash. You can set up a sniper point and shoot the dude as he's driving towards you. You can cause an accident. There's so many cool ways in this densely populated world here where you're walking around hundreds of people and executing people left and right. And it's such a bright, colorful map too. Then you even get to like weird shit. Like I think the final mission was kind of like something out of Eyes Wide Shut where you're sitting around a cult and you've got masks and you're seeing sacrifice and all this wild stuff. Basically everything I said positive about Hitman 3 and Hitman, I'm carrying over to here, but with almost none of the negatives of those games, because everything in Hitman 2 is just like firing on all cylinders. You got the whole game at once this time, which I'll admit, I kind of liked the episodic release, but it's fine to get all of them at once, because I still, even when I got Hitman 3, I'd play the first mission, and I'd play it about 24 more times before I even progressed to the next one. So it's the same experience to me, but they let you have it all at once. The graphics were improved just a little bit. It was just a little bit more fine-tuned. To me, this is the perfect Hitman game. Hitman 3 does it pretty much just as good with a couple more bugs. We'll see how time has aged, if the maps in Hitman 3 end up being more dear to my heart than the ones in Hitman 2. But as of right now, this is a perfect Hitman game, and it is #1. So what do you guys think? What is your ranking of the Hitman games? Let me know down below what your ranking is, and we will talk about it. If you played Hitman 3 yet, you need to get on that shit. Tell me down below, and we will discuss this awesome franchise. Please like and share this video. Hit that subscribe button if you are not already a subscriber. If you guys want to check out some more gaming videos, game rankings, I'll try to put some cards at the end of this video to kind of push you towards that. I've ranked the Batman Arkham games. I've ranked the Uncharted games. I got reviews for both of the Last of Us games, which are pretty big last year. So check out all of that, guys. And remember, as always, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean that you have to be.